Hello everybody. I'm doing a little traveling for work and I wanted to get a video out. So I guess this makes me an official YouTuber now that you're getting the car video. But I wanted to get my thoughts out on a subject while I'm able to, otherwise I'm going to forget everything I've been thinking about on this drive. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my process as a songwriter, moving from when I started writing music to now. And I wanted to talk about the concept of constantly developing and not hitting your peak, because you can't hit your peak. I don't think that because music is a window in time to where you're at as a composer, and because people are constantly learning, constantly developing, constantly growing, you're going to have your music represent a different phase of yourself every time you write, and it should be that way. If it's not that way, and if you don't see that kind of growth, you're going through the motions, or you're letting the genre dictate how you should sound. But when I first started writing music, I've always been an author of something. When I was a kid, I would have pen to paper for something. I didn't find the conduit of music until I don't know, high school, in terms of trying to get my feet wet and write anything on my own. But I did try to force my way through things. I wanted to try to see if I could tackle it myself. And, everyone that has written stuff when they were young, going back and looking at what you've done, it can be pretty embarrassing, but you shouldn't look at it like that. As I said, every piece of music you work on, every record you work on, every song you work on is a window into a piece of time that represented yourself at the time. And since we're always growing, you have to look at that as who you were, your best you at the time, if you put your all into it. And it should represent things that are going to be strengths and weaknesses. You're going to want to look at that stuff and know when you make your next record that you were able to overcome some of your shortcomings, and hopefully the message you were trying to say and the emotion you were trying to develop didn't get hindered as you had your sophomore release, if it was in the same type of genre, because that immediacy, that vitality of your first project it's always going to be most evident when you first are trying to do something. That's when you're most motivated, you're hungry, you're excited. I can't think of too many bands that have had multi-album careers and still have that kind of ferociousness that they had when they first started. And at that point, you just got to wonder if you should just hang it up. If as I've said many times, and what I've been very critical of in a lot of my videos is there a message being delivered from the artist? Is there an emotion tied into it? Is there a unique voice of the author being heard? And if you've made it through several records and you no longer have that, but you're able to have at this point a great command over the language of music to fake it enough to get a record out, I really don't think that maybe you should keep going. And that kind of approach is transparent, and that's why people that are metal fans, they can pick up on that, and they're gonna let you know. This is not legit. You're giving me something that does not represent who you are, and that's why everyone calls everyone a poser in this genre. And it's annoying to hear all the time, but at the same time, there is some truth to it. But as far as developing yourself, I always tell myself, you're not there yet. And I don't want to be there. There should not be a there to get to. You want to keep going. As I've been making music, I've done records in a few different genres, and they've all had that Venn diagram within the metal genre in some way. I have picked up on a lot of my weaknesses. I've picked up on some of my strengths. I've known how to overcome them while not sacrificing my voice in the process and not sacrificing the message I'm trying to say. I've been able to pick up on certain things that will enhance my abilities to get a picture of the music to the audience, and it's been very exciting. If you've watched my videos and seen the flame wars I get into in the comments, you'll know that I do not have a command of music theory, and I don't think it's necessary. In fact, if you don't want to learn something nowadays, it's got to be deliberate. You can learn anything. YouTube is right there. I have had an irrational fear of music theory because I don't want to sacrifice my voice as a player and a composer. I feel very confident in what I do, and I'm excited by everything that I do, and I love hearing it come together. And I don't want to become too analytical. If you've seen my videos, you know I'm pretty fucking analytical. I don't want to get that way with the mathematical aspects of music. I don't want to learn too much. I want that magic to still be there when I'm composing. As far as that magic, I remember before I started understanding metal, what metal was, my first ever death metal show was Immolation when I think I had to be 17, had a fake ID to get into Jackhammer in Chicago, and the first band that opened up, the first metal band I've ever seen, was a terrible band called In Spite of You. It was all smashed together as one word, and I was so thrilled by seeing live, heavy, kind of semi-extreme music presented to me, and I didn't know what was good. I didn't know what was bad. I didn't analyze it, of course. I just took it in, and it was super exciting. And I really miss that, man. I really miss not knowing the ins and outs of music. And I don't know the ins and outs of music altogether, and that's part of You're Not There Yet. But I do know a lot about the inner workings of it from having composed music and listened to music for so long. And in relation to You're Not There Yet, I don't know everything that works. You can't know everything that works, but I know a great deal of what doesn't work. And that's why I'm so critical of a lot of these bands that I'm covering, is because I can listen to an arrangement and I can tell based on how each riff lands into the next, how the melodies tie into each other, how the dynamics are being used, whether or not they are in a mindset where all of it is cohesive or all of it is riddled with, shortcomings or crutches. I can hear that, I can feel it, I can tell when it's happening. And that doesn't mean I don't like what I'm hearing. Like, I could probably get into the song still, but I can listen and be like, oh yeah, I've been there. I know what happened in that arrangement process. I know that they settled for this because this wasn't working here and they tried to make it happen there. I've been there, and I have been able to minimize a lot of that kind of issue just by letting the songs essentially write themselves. I know that sounds kind of dumb, because there is a lot of thought that goes into what I do. I've thrown away probably 5 times more riffs than I've written, and when I settle on a composition, it comes together organically, but at the same time, I have attempted most likely several different paths before I feel like this most adequately represents the idea I'm trying to get across, and this most adequately ties in the melodic sensibility to the entire composition. And the way I go about it is I go from start of the song to end of the song. And before I do that, if I'm going to attempt to make a record, I go from start of the record to end of the record. I decide mentally how I want this record to play out, where I want the peaks and valleys to be, how I want each song to represent a facet of a greater whole for an album length. And this is all stuff that I don't think is being focused on in metal by a lot of people. I think a lot of them are just like, oh, here's a cool riff, here's another cool riff, let's slam them together. Do you have something? I have something, let's try to make it work. And I don't want to decry the the collaborative aspect of writing as a band. If it works, it's cool. That's awesome. But for me, having a singular voice is the best way to get an idea across. And you'll be able to fully understand that author if they are very good at getting that message to you through song. So I try to go from A to Z in a song. I never have a pile of riffs laying around and I try to make them work and smash them together or put a transition in between. I never go about that way. I feel like if you write from A to Z, from the start of the song to the end, you're going to get the most organic flow to it. I also try not to be locked in by the sense of common rhythms, and I don't look to the idea of trying to befuddle the audience with a bunch of weird type signatures. What I'm saying is I let the melody complete the phrase instead of letting the meter dictate where the melody ends. So when I'm playing, when I'm coming up with a riff, coming up with a part, I will let the melody naturally conclude, and that will denote how the phrase works. And very often it winds up not being a common time signature, and that pisses off a lot of my drummers. But this is I'm melodically centered, so at the end of the day, you'll be able to recognize what's happening if you kind of let the melody get digested. And I think that most, obviously most music is written in your standard 4/4 type of stuff, or doubled meter of that. But if you wind up letting your music fall into arrangements, fall into rhythms, you are constricting yourself. If you are like, oh, I want to write a song, what is a common arrangement that works? And then you come across the pop arrangement with your verse chorus type of thing, you're already limiting your voice. You're already hamstringing your voice. You should just let yourself naturally write. If it ends up not being what you wanted to represent yourself with when you're done, then take it back to the drawing board. But I think that this is the best way to get your voice out there, is to just write naturally. Don't think about common arrangements. Don't think about common rhythms. Just play and see how it works. And I had a friend, speaking of that, years ago, who told me that when you are coming up with a new project, coming up with a new record, a new band or whatever, throw away your first songs. He said, you're not going to have it figured out. Just throw them away and start after that. I disagree with that. Obviously, we come from the metal genre. We all know that usually a band's first record is their most ferocious. The message of the band is the most cohesive. You're the most hungry, so keep that shit. Let it be a window into who you are. If you're an inadequate songwriter at the time, showcase that you still have the same message of the project in your next record, but let that first output that you've come out represent who you are at the time. When you go back and listen through to your discography after you have enough records in, you'll be able to see that line of how you developed, and you'll know what works, what doesn't work. I've done a few records in different genres, as I've said. I put out a death metal record last year. Do I think it's my best record? No. I think it's my best death metal record. I put out like a prog rock instrumental kind of thing about 10 years ago. I think that might be my best record in terms of like getting a message cohesively out to the audience, and still having it be an adventurous listen, still have it be myself. You can tell it's me when you listen to it. I did a blackened death metal thing about 4 years ago. I think the writing on that one is tight as fuck. I think that is a really cohesive record. It's a shame that project didn't come together for longer. But I was able to understand, as I've taken part in these genres, what works, what doesn't work, and that's why I'm so critical of a lot of these bands. And I understand, like, people are gonna come at me and be like, oh, you just don't like it, and that's why you're saying this, and that is absolutely untrue. I am just looking at arrangements and I'm looking at individual players' voices to try to pinpoint whether or not I can tell it's actually inspired, because inspiration is the most important thing. If someone is peddling something to you that's uninspired and it's because they want to belong to something or just have fun, you're not getting artistry there and you're not getting a timeless record. And you don't have to have something timeless all the time. There's a time and a place to drive through McDonald's, but at the same time, you have to understand that those flash in the pan kind of records are they exist for that immediate gratification, and then you should just write them off afterwards. I've gotten people asking me, what do I think about gent? What do I think about whatever? And these are genres. First of all, that shouldn't be a genre. It's a style that was popularized by a band. Let that band be the band that does that. When you start splintering off by copying a voicing of a particular band, where every band now represents its own genre, you're really showing that your inspiration as a player is not really there, aside from the urge to be a copycat. You can be great at doing the music. You can be great at emulating the sound, but what does that get you? Aside from the notoriety of like, you're gonna nonstop see that comparison in your reviews. When people start talking to you about one-on-one after a show, they're gonna bring up the band you're ripping off. Do you really want to hear that your whole life? I don't. And this is why I'm so excited about who I am as a player, because I don't think that I, as an artist, can be pigeonholed as to what I'm doing, and I don't think too many people can compare what I do to other people. And I would love that to be what I'm hearing from everybody. Everybody is unique to the point where they should have their own voicings. You can tell who Trey Azagthoth is when he starts playing. You could tell who still Morbid Angel. You can still tell who Eric Rutan is when he starts playing. In the modern death metal genre, can you tell who any of those people are by their playing? Not really, because they're going through the motions and they're trying to participate in something that is established to the point where it has a fan base, and they know it's a can't lose type of thing, because people that are into that stuff are looking at the technique. They're not looking at their message. They're not looking at the uniqueness of the player. They're just looking for that flashy technique, because they take away from that the idea of, I can possibly do that too. I'm going to practice my guitar. I haven't practiced my skills at guitar since I became a composer, because why the fuck would I want to? I got as far as I wanted to be able to express my ideas, and that should be all you need. You've got people like Jeff Loomis that have said they practice every 6 hours a day, and if you want to play solos like that, sure, go ahead, but really, you should be taking all of that time that you're practicing and spending it composing, if you have that constant drive, and if the well doesn't run dry for you. But I just think that people are not focused on the right things, especially now. If you can make your one bedroom recording, throw some fake drums on it, and get it out there, and it'll be more immediate than the idea of like, let's all get a whole bunch of people together and try to ham fist a record out. If you're inspired, put a bunch of shit out online, like flood the airwaves, do whatever you have to make yourself be heard, because that will show me that you are inspired. And I don't know. I think that we're just focusing on the wrong things. We're focusing on the wrong things, and I think a lot of the people that are, masters of their craft now, like your Toast and Abasi or whatever, they think they have hit their peak, and they have their command on the instrument, and because of that, they're able to compose. And I think that is a poor mindset. Like I said, you're not there yet. You should never be there. You should not want to be there, because once you're there, you're dead emotionally. You should want to keep growing. And if you're gonna start playing music in the metal genre, decide what part of the genre reflects who you are and why you want to participate in it. I've always been fascinated by, morbid shit, death, stuff like that. That's why death metal resonated with me, and the melodic sensibility of death metal resonated with me. I'm not about to put out a true fucking Scandinavian sounding black metal record. I don't have that spirit. If I try to go ahead and do it, it's not going to sound organic. It's going to sound fake as fuck, and I would deserve the flogging I would get for it. But if you're going to take part in the genre, think to yourself, is the genre a conduit for me to be heard, which is what it should be, or am I a conduit for the genre to be heard? If I go and see if I see like the band Trouble play, they come to Milwaukee kind of often. If I see Trouble play, I'm probably going to see, aside from my friends who in their band, they're actually very good at what they do. Chances are I'm going to see the same type of stoner band that I see every time I go to a stoner show, and it's one of those things where it's like, why are you doing this? Why are you taking part in this genre? What is inspiring you to do it? Do you want to just have fun? Do you want to just sound like your heroes? What is the inspiration there? Because none of that tells me that you have this inner voicing that absolutely has to be heard, or you're not going to feel complete as a person. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear desperate people making desperate sounding music, because that kind of spiritual outcry is what artistry is. And you don't hear that in modern metal, which is why I'm so critical of it. And like I said, I do not think I have all the answers. You're going to see me on my hills to die on in every thread, in every video, but that is because I have come as far as I have as a composer, knowing what common tropes are to avoid, knowing what handicaps are going to hobble your process, knowing how to avoid those. For instance, that the Cannibal Corpse song I talked about a few weeks ago. It has a like a 4/4 type of rhythm, and then it goes to 3/4. And in order to do that, they dropped out the percussion. And if you're going to be writing a song that is in 3/4, you're going to have that jaunty kind of rhythm that will get you'll get fatigue of that as your song plays out. So if you want to express your idea with a different color behind it, and you want to change the rhythm, you can go to an even time signature, but doing that and then reverting back to 3/4 if you wanted to is difficult to do. It's and even bands like Cannibal Corpse, who have been around for a billion years, you could still see that they struggled doing it. You could tell they had some parts that they liked, and they just fucking smashed them together, because there is no transition. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for when I'm analyzing music. Should this music be analyzed? I don't know, but I'm doing it, so that's what you're fucking getting. Because I know that right now, and it's impossible to deny, that right now the expression being heard in metal is at an all-time low, and my exercises that I'm doing in trying to analyze this shit is to pinpoint some of the reasoning why. And if you're going to try to tackle a time signature switch like 3/4 to 4/4 or whatever, it's going to feel forced unless you have thought from A to Z how you want that to work. If you thought from B to D, or if you have two riffs that just sound cool and you want to smash them together, it's going to always sound forced. It's going to sound awkward. It's not going to sound like a complete idea. I have a song on, I'm in a death metal band called Ara. I'm sure you guys have doxed me well enough to find out. On the second record we put out, there's a song called Dredgehammer that has a single riff that alternates between like a 4/4 to a 3/4, and it's the same riff, but the rhythm changes. And that was Eric, the drummer's idea, and it ended up being really cool. But it feels natural. And if it didn't feel natural, I wouldn't have allowed it to happen. And that's the type of thing where you could see that these bands want to get some ideas across to the audience. They want to feel that they are taking you on a journey. And if you are going to be encountering 3/4 versus 4/4, that's a journey. Your song is changing, but you have to feel like you have command over that. If you don't have command over it, it's not going to feel authentic. It's going to feel forced. It's going to feel awkward. And a majority of the modern stuff that's coming my way just doesn't sound like there is command of the composition. There's command over the instrumentation. All of the players are sick as fuck. Believe me, I'm never going to criticize any of these bands for having poor musicianship. They can all play circles around me, but once again, I don't give a fuck about that. I stopped practicing guitar when I was a goddamn teenager. But the command of the actual arrangement, the command of the instrumentation is not there. The command over the instrument itself is surely there. These guys know how to fucking play, but they don't know how to write songs. And if you can't write a song, you can't get your message across. If you can't write a song, you can't write a record. If you can't write a record, you don't have an artistic statement. You got to go back to the drawing board. And I think that right now we're suffering from too many bands being allowed to have their voice heard through the internet when a lot of them should be going back to the drawing board. And the more we kiss all of their asses for being good at their instruments, the more they're not going to know that they have to go back to the drawing board. And we really just have to dial it back with our praise. This is going to be one of the few channels where you're going to see honest criticism. And you're going to see criticism of the objective traits of songwriting, which do exist. Every other channel, every other review site, they're going to talk about whether they like it or not, or they're going to discuss other bands it sounds like and give you the idea whether or not you want to listen to the record. That's not what you're going to be getting out of me. And I would like to think that if you put aside your biases enough to listen to what the fuck I'm talking about, you'll realize that, hey, maybe he's right on a few things. Maybe there is some shit that's going on in modern metal that is just not good, regardless of whether or not I like it. And, I don't have the lofty idea that I'm going to change the direction of shit. But I will say that I know that because of how hard people hop trends, right now people are hopping trends of shitty songwriting. If a good band comes along where the showcase is on the composition instead of the actual command of the instrument, we're going to have people ripping that off, and that will be a good form of copycatting because they're ripping off the soul of the song instead of ripping off the aesthetics of the song. Sign me up for that. Sure. Go ahead. Give me something that is actually like pithy and thought out. That's what we need. So that's kind of a history for where I've gone from A to Z. And because I'm not there yet, and because no one should be there yet, my best records are yet to come. And that's fucking exciting. That's what I'm looking forward to. So remember, as much as you feel like you have the understanding of what works, what doesn't work, your command over your instrument, your command over your songwriting, be open to the idea that you have things to learn and ways to harness your voice so that people can understand what you're saying in a way that is cohesive, yet still can be different from person to person so that they can understand themselves through yourself as well. That's what makes music exciting, and that's what makes it objectively valuable. So until next time, thank you for listening.